Sawant says bonjour Modi. Modi and his Dost Macron lead AI summit. Prime Minister Modi shares AI leadership vision.
We have made digital commerce democratic and accessible to all. This vision is the foundation of India's national AI mission.
Bats for cybersecurity, war on deepfakes.
We must address concerns related to cybersecurity, disinformation, and deepfakes.
Modi's AI for sustainable growth pitch. Modi's biggest AI push.
And the biggest AI push is hosting the summit in India next time, and it's very important because India can be that very critical bridge between the tech supergiants, the big superpowers, and the developing world. India is that crucial bridge that we also saw during G20. I'm Gaurav Sawant. We'll talk about that in greater detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi co-chaired the Artificial Intelligence Action Summit in Paris alongside the French President Emmanuel Macron. In his address, Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasized on the need to democratize artificial intelligence. He sent out a very strong message. Machines will never surpass the human mind. It will never surpass humanity. He highlighted artificial intelligence's transformative potential in governance, in politics, in economy, in agriculture, in education. The Prime Minister advocated open source AI solutions. The summit saw participation of top tech leaders, including Google CEO Sundar Pichai, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. There were several world leaders on this very important stage, from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to US Vice President J.D. Vance and many, many others. We bring you our top story from Paris.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi co-chaired the Global AI Action Summit in Paris with French President Emmanuel Macron. Highlighting both the transformative potential and inherent risk of artificial intelligence, Prime Minister Modi emphasized the pressing need for global cooperation in AI governance.
We must develop open source systems that enhance trust and transparency. We must build quality data sets free from biases. We must democratize technology and create people-centric applications.
The Indian Prime Minister underscored that AI is progressing at an unprecedented pace, shaping the future of humanity unlike any other technological milestone in history.
Friend, loss of jobs is AI's most feared disruption. But history has shown that work does not disappear due to technology. Its nature changes and new types of jobs are created. We need to invest in skilling and reskilling our people for an AI-driven future.
And India is prepared for this new age intelligence potential.
We have unlocked the power of data through our data empowerment and protection architecture. And we have made digital commerce democratic and accessible to all. This vision is the foundation of India's national AI mission. That is why, during our G20 presidency, we built a consensus on harnessing AI responsibly for good and for all.
Joined by French President Emmanuel Macron at Grand Palais in Paris as co-chair for Action Summit global leaders, Prime Minister Modi's proposals were welcomed warmly. US Vice President, while thanking him, established the promise of leading the industry with example.
I appreciate Prime Minister Modi's point. AI, I really believe, will facilitate and make people more productive. The administration will make sure that America has the best trained workforce in the world. Our schools will teach students how to manage, how to supervise, and how to interact with AI-enabled tools as they become more and more a part of our everyday lives.
The ongoing Global AI Summit is star-studded with the presence of not only global leaders, but also the movers and shakers of tech and AI industry, like Sundar Pichai, Sam Altman, Google DeepMind's Demis Hassabis, and others. Deepfake and the dark world of cybercrime are the biggest concerns threatening the artificial intelligence industry. From CEOs to global leaders, both the stakeholders are united to fight this nemesis.
So we are early on working on technology like SynthID, watermarking technology. We will need standards, and those are areas where governments and private companies can work together to create a standardized way to detect deepfakes.
Bureau Report, India Today.
Thank you so much.
And joining me on this India Today special broadcast from Paris is Nicolas Barr, Editor-in-Chief of Politico France. Also with me is Vidushi Marda. She's Director of Partnerships AI Collaborative. Let me quickly come to Nicolas Barr first and try and understand from you, Nicolas. Welcome on India Today. What is the key takeaway for you, from this summit? How does one ensure that big tech does not use AI to influence opinion in developing countries? Something that Prime Minister Narendra Modi also pointed out.
Yes, certainly. What we are seeing is that there's a really, it's striking to me. There's really a common language between the Prime Minister and what President Macron has said. You can see that the two leaders are really close on these issues, and if there's a common understanding from both sides, it's there's a different language coming from the vice president, the US vice president. So. In other words, Europe is and France in particular is much closer to what Prime Minister Modi is saying and said today than what the US Prime Minister has said. And this is really striking. I mean, when the Prime Minister says that AI must be free of bias, that it must be fair, available to anyone, that all this language, you can put it in the mouth of the French president.
Yes. And that is something that both of them, have emphasized on even in the past. Vidushi Marda, India, as Nicholas was also telling us right now, has been pushing for fair access to artificial intelligence, especially for developing countries, for global south countries. But are AI superpowers and big tech receptive to this idea, or is this then a dialogue of the deaf?
I mean, it's definitely not a dialogue of the deaf. One of the main things that is coming out of the summit is the launch of a new global partnership on championing AI in the public interest. It is deliberately global and it's called Current AI. And the focus here is to ensure that AI systems, data sets, models, accountability measures, and standards are within the realm of not just global superpowers, but everyone. Current AI will be focusing on ensuring that high quality data sets are made available in critical domains for the public interest, including health and science. we're going to ensure that the best open tools around safety and keeping us safe when we use AI systems is made accessible to all. It's also going to ensure that accountability is a global effort and greater than the sum of the many, brilliant parts that are building towards AI accountability. So, if anything, this is a moment that is showing us that we're at the beginning of a long, collaborative, and global path towards ensuring that AI works for people and communities.
And are China and the United States on the same page? Is the world on the same page on this? In your appreciation, Vidushi Mardab, your response first before I bring in Nicholas Barr.
Yeah, so through this entire process over the last year, we've been in close contact with governments, with industry, with partners from civil society and the technical community. And I think it's a matter of when, not if, in terms of how we all come together and work collaboratively towards this reality. We have a number of country partners who have signed on to the charter coming out of the AI Summit, and also have expressed interest in building together. And it's really a very encouraging sign to see the strength of the room, the energy of the room, and the spirit of collaboration, and that we must all win for any of us to win.
Nicholas Barr, one of the bigger issues or one of the biggest apprehensions in the world remains fear of job losses due to AI. Prime Minister Narendra Modi sought to address that in terms of reskilling and upskilling. How difficult would that be, especially for the developing countries?
Yeah, well, of course, it's a challenge, although we don't know exactly the magnitude of the challenge. Obviously, AI will also create jobs in many ways. It will boost efficiencies in some industries, but at the same time, we all know that some jobs are some categories of jobs are in danger. That's for sure. But for the moment, it's very hard to predict exactly the magnitude of this of the impact of AI, and it's been the case in in the history of innovation. You've always seen that in the past, concern and at the same time optimism on innovation. So it's clearly a challenge for the education systems. We need to, in any countries, we will need to adapt the education system, and to also make sure that the workers all along their lives are trained to new technologies. This is a difficult challenge, but it's also fascinating and stimulating.
Indeed. And Vidushi Mardab, the bigger issue of job losses, apprehension of job losses due to artificial intelligence, the issue of upskilling and reskilling, fair and equitable access to artificial intelligence. How is the world moving forward on that, and especially for Global South?
I think the needs of different countries vary differently when it comes to this particular AI moment and beyond. Talent and ensuring that talent is on the same page as AI development, and ensuring that everyone is well placed to benefit from this current moment is a priority for all countries, and maybe a bigger priority for some as opposed to others. And I think the main achievement of this moment is to ground our understanding of AI and its future in ground realities and on what local communities need. So I think collaboratively thinking about what specific countries need and working from there onwards, instead of thinking about what technology can offer and trying to fit countries into that conversation, is absolutely necessary. And we look well placed to do it at the moment.
Oh, that's nice to hear. Nicholas Barr, what were the big ideas on the table that were discussed and that can be taken forward now?
There have been lots of discussions. Parts of the discussions are around data protection, cyber attacks, and this is of course a big concern, and we know that on data protection, different countries don't share the same views. Of course, China is on one side of the world, but also in the US, you don't have probably the same views as in Europe or in India. There are also many talks about how to regulate AI. What's the good level of regulation compared to the needs of innovation and things like that. And on this also, you heard what the the US Vice President said. I mean, essentially, he was saying, well, don't regulate. We need to boost innovation, and then we'll see what happens. Of course, that's not exactly the way Europeans and probably Indians see that. We need to have a legal framework. We need to have a democratized access to AI resources. We need to guarantee that everyone can access to this technology in a fairly manner, as the Prime Minister said. And so there's a whole discussion on these issues that is sometimes difficult, to be honest.
True. And Vidushi Marda, there were concerns raised about, as Nicholas Barr was pointing out, cybersecurity, disinformation. The Prime Minister spoke of deep fakes. How does one guard against that in an open society like India and the threat especially posed by deep fakes?
We need shared understanding of the technical, but also the social realities of how these systems are built, how they are spread, how they gain credibility, and how they can be stopped. I think, so far it's been within the domain of, say, only the technologists to understand what to do about deepfakes. And, we saw different attempts to maybe block the possibility. But as we've learned, it's not really possible to stop the development of technology in the open domain, but we can be more responsible on platforms. We can be more careful about how we think about the health of our news ecosystem and build in, an interdisciplinary fashion. And that's why we need a room that is filled with the best minds, not just from industry and not just from government, but also civil society and from the technical community.
And what is the governance architecture that we are talking about, that we are looking at, that we are trying to arrive at, Nicholas Barr? Rules that would apply not just in one part of the world, but would be applicable across the world, since cyberspace makes this entire world into one village. Nicholas Barr, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
The governance architecture.
Well, there's a legal framework that was put in place in Europe. So in that sense, probably this continent is a bit in advance compared to others. So we have some regulations in place, and you've seen how the big tech, the US big tech, have been quite unhappy with that. We're under pressure from the US to change this legislation. It's not going to happen, but it's so we have this framework here, but it's another issue to extend that to other parts of the world.
And Vidushi Marda, is it easy to take that across the world? Because everywhere there are different yardsticks. So what is that common governance system or architecture, an overarching architecture that can be put in place or is being put in place?
We have a combination of existing standards that are already in place and a number of things that we need to put in place in order to get to where we want. So in terms of what is already existing, we have international human rights standards that are agreed upon. We have technical standards that many technical standardization organizations have worked on for a long time to ensure that we're all operating at the same level and with the same requirements. Domestic regulations and legislations, much like the EU and in India, they need to be put in place as a starting point, and then thinking about harmonizing them along with global standards and ensuring that we're at the best common denominator is absolutely crucial. I think many times we talk about fragmentation of regulation as something that, stops us from making progress and getting to global standards. But in my view, it's actually quite possible to build from the local and build on the strengths from each of local jurisdictions to work with international standards that are already existing, and then identify the ones that need to be put in place.
Because the Prime Minister spoke of AI and its transformative role, for example, in healthcare or education or agriculture, and also towards, achieving the SDG goals. Where is India, Vidushi Marda, in your view, compared to the world when it comes to harnessing the power of artificial intelligence?
India's approach to AI systems through the India AI mission and others shows a willingness to build and also shows a willingness to know where accountability needs to be and how we need to think about privacy and safety as we build these systems. So there's definitely encouraging progress in India about, how do we manage risks, but also ensure that we reap the benefits. And I think a global stage such as the one in Paris is particularly encouraging because the dialogue starts not from, a blank slate, but from everyone's realities.
Oh, absolutely. And Nicholas Barr, before I thank the both of you, I want to understand from you your impressions of the West on one side, Europe and India at one level, and China on the other side. Where is the meeting point when it comes to the global framework, global governance framework?
Well, we are in a geopolitical moment that is really interesting because on one side you have the US, where the new administration is kind of protectionist, to say the least, and on the other side you have China, where we all know the regime and all the control that and censorship that is in place in this country. So we are in the middle of in between those two big countries, and this geopolitical moment is interesting because we have lots of the dialogue between Europe and India is probably more fruitful than it would be in another context. I mean, it's in this moment we've seen that with what Prime Minister said today.
Yes.
As I said in the beginning, there's a common dialogue, there's a common point of views that are obvious between the two, between Europe and India, and France in particular, and India, I would say.
Okay. For joining me here on this India Today special broadcast, Nicholas Mar and Vidushi Marda, many thanks. So the conference now moves to India. India's offered to host it next time, and we will continue to track developments on this front very closely. I also want to bring into this conversation my colleague Shiv Arur, who's been tracking the AI Action Summit in France. Shiv, the Prime Minister, when he spoke of the importance, the transformative role of artificial intelligence, and he cautioned that we need to beware when it comes to deep fakes, misinformation. Artificial intelligence is actually reshaping the future, Shiv.
Gaurav, Prime Minister Modi's presence, at this AI summit in Paris is hugely important, especially in view of what's been happening over the last few weeks and months. The AI battle for dominance in the world is currently largely seen as a fight between a bipolar fight between the United States and China. And India has been trying to find its place. India has enormous requirements for AI, for automation, across different kinds of government, and other functions. It's going to become, a part of everyone's life. Right now people are just dipping their toes into the world of AI. But I'm told that in 6 months from now, an AI tsunami is going to hit where, the world is going to be very different from what it is even now. And therefore, the Prime Minister, leading the charge at this AI summit, meeting with the biggest stakeholders in this very exciting new world means that there is an effort being made for India to have a real and credible place there, not just as a market, as Sam Altman of OpenAI, somewhat dismissively said, a few days ago when he was in India and when he met the Indian IT minister, but as an innovator, a country that actually creates models, creates innovations, that become global utilities like ChatGPT and DeepSeek really are. And those are only small examples. So I think whether it is, meeting with people like Satya Nadella, whose Microsoft is investing hugely in India, to Sam Altman, to, Elon Musk when the Prime Minister goes to the United States in a couple of days, all of this is going to have a huge bearing. Believe me, in just months from now, the world is going to change, and hopefully India will be in a really, really good position to take advantage of that.
Well, this is the biggest transformation, and the Prime Minister has also referred to it. But Shiv, since you mentioned his visit to the United States of America, his meeting US President Donald Trump and India-US partnership, there are challenges, but there are great opportunities ahead, Shiv.
This is an enormously anticipated visit to the United States, more important than any one before. And I can imagine, Gaurav, all of India's diplomatic machinery working overtime to ensure that this is going to be a smooth visit. Prime Minister Modi has expressed his warmth for his dear friend Trump. Trump, right before the elections, which he won so handsomely, has expressed his admiration and his affection for his dear friend Narendra Modi. So, the body language, the bonhomie, all of those things are there. But there is, there's hard politics and real business to discuss. Trump already made it very clear, in his opening conversation with Modi, that not only is he going to place a great deal of primacy on weapon sales to India, but also the tariff war, the terrifying tariff issue, that continues to be a friction point between India and the United States. How Modi manages to navigate this first conversation will set the template for what the rest of this relationship is going to look like. There's a great deal of continuity. The two leaders get along very, very well. They're both enormously popular in their own countries, but there are issues here that will need careful handling, that go beyond just the fact that they are so compatible as two human beings. I see weapon sales on the table. I have a feeling that Trump is going to push the sale of armored vehicles like the Stryker, possibly transport and reconnaissance aircraft. He may, pull something out of his hat and maybe even offer, different kinds of fighter aircraft, or, use that as currency for India to maybe manage to sidestep certain, tariff measures. All of these things should be seen as being on the table when it comes to someone as whimsical and unpredictable as President Donald Trump. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it works out. There's word that Prime Minister Modi may meet Elon Musk as well. It won't be his first meeting, of course, but given Elon Musk's new role, his new profile, that's going to be very, very interesting to see as well, because there are, of course, all those larger questions over Elon Musk trying to enter the Indian market with all his many companies. So we'll be looking at, all of those angles as well, Gaurav.
Shiv, keep tracking that story. I will come to you and Geeta Mohan for more on this. They're both very tough negotiators. But somewhere down the line, do we know when to close the deal and when to both India and the United States of America to move forward, not just in mutual interest, but for the larger good? So Prime Minister Narendra Modi right now is in Paris. He's just chaired the AI Action Summit. There's a very important bilateral leg to this visit. He'll be flying to Marseille, where there's an Indian consulate that's being inaugurated. And that also shows how people-to-people contact between India and France, very, very strong, two extremely strong strategic partners over several decades, India and France. And then Prime Minister Narendra Modi flies to Washington, D.C. to meet the new US President Donald Trump, the first meeting after Trump's re-election. But then there are tough negotiations ahead when it comes to the tariff war, India's exports to the United States of America, and US wanting India to buy several big-ticket items from there. Geeta Mohan with more in this report.
Fresh off his party's victory in New Delhi, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is riding high on Brand India as he attends the Global AI Action Summit in Paris. As co-chair of the conference, India is playing a key role in shaping the future of AI. However, the next leg of his 5-day overseas trip could be a little more challenging.
Today, I'm simplifying our tariffs on steel and aluminum so that everyone can understand exactly what it means. It's 25% without exceptions or exemptions, and that's all countries, no matter where it comes from.
India has largely been unaffected by first rounds of Trump tariffs. Even the latest set of tariffs does not impact India as badly as it does Canada, China and Mexico. The three biggest trading partners of the US have borne the brunt of increased import duties and new tariffs on steel and aluminium products. However, India may soon find itself in the spotlight, with the Trump administration planning tit-for-tat tariffs later this week. The move aims to match tariffs imposed by foreign nations on US goods.
It's time to be reciprocal. So you'll be hearing that word a lot, reciprocal. If they charge us, we charge them. If they're at 25, we're at 25. If they're at 10, we're at 10. And if they're much higher than 25, that's where we are too. So that's having to do with everything. That's not just steel and aluminum. But we'll be discussing that over the next couple of weeks. But we will be looking at chips, and we will be looking at cars, and we're going to be looking at pharmaceuticals, and there'll be a couple of other things also in addition.
Budget 2025 proposes a cut in import duties, but for now, India imposes some of the highest tariffs on US goods, a factor that could trigger increased tariffs on Indian exports to the US. According to the World Trade Organization, the US trade weighted average tariff rate is about 2.2%, compared to 12% for India, 6.7% for Brazil, 5.1% for Vietnam, and 2.7% for EU. Reports suggest India could face a tariff hike of 4 to 6% if the US goes ahead with its reciprocal duties plan, potentially disrupting the government's ambitious export growth plans and setting the stage for tough negotiations between the Indian and US delegations during PM Modi's Washington, D.C. visit. Bureau Report, Business Today TV.